everyone. It's been a while since we met and talked about books. I can't believe that it's already spring. We are well into spring. And yeah, it's been a few months since we sat down and had a cozy little chat about books. So I've got my cup of tea. I've got my kitty cat Finch sitting with me. And it's kind of a dreary spring day. It rained last night and it's really overcast this morning. So I thought now might be a good time to sit down and have a cozy little book chat. I must admit, reading has been slow for me this year. I think I did really well last year with reading. I read almost every single day, which was a big deal for me. And I was trying to do that this year too, but I've gotten to a point where I recognize that that's maybe not sustainable. You know, you have trips and things that happen, and it can be really difficult to read every day when you're really busy. So I'm trying to still read as much as I can, but if I miss a day, it's not the end of the world, you know? And honestly, I've been really busy engaging with some of my other hobbies. I've been doing a lot of gaming with my friends online, which has been really nice. Yeah, just been kind of busy, but I've still been able to do some reading, and I've been working on some reading projects, which has been cool. I started a reading journal. Here she is. Wow, what do you think of that, buddy? Oh, you want scratches too? Yeah. Okay. Very good. You're a good kitten. Yes. So, when I was picking out a reading journal, it was really important to me that I choose something sustainable. I've noticed that with a lot of journals on the market, they're made with a lot of plastic, and I don't really like that. I try to reduce my plastic intake, and so I wanted something that was compostable. You know, I may not keep this forever. Someday when I'm no longer around, I want this to be able to go back into the earth instead of sitting in a landfill for who knows how long. So I had a really hard time finding journals that were compostable or made out of, more natural products. So this company, what is their name? Oh yes. Okay. Montreal by studionerds.com. Honestly, I can't read their logo here, but you can see it there. They seem to be a really small company. They had a couple different designs, so that was what I ended up going with. There's some other really cool companies that make like paper compostable journals, but I just wasn't feeling the pattern. So I went with this. It's just simple. And I've been working on it. It's been a little slow going because I decided to add what I did last year to the journal. And then you might have seen in some of my other videos that I had purchased or thrifted some stamps, and I got some inks. such as, where is it? Here it is, such as this one. They came with the stamps, which was really cool. And so I kind of decided to experiment, and I got some of these blending brushes that are specifically for ink. Here's one. They kind of look like little makeup brushes. And they're super soft. What do you think, buddy? Do you want to get bit by one? Oh, yes. He's a silly guy. Oh, yes. I'm gonna have cat hair all over my paintbrush, but it's fine. So the technique is that you kind of like rub the brush on the ink pad, and then you kind of make like a blending like this, and it kind of blends out the colors. And so here's an example from my intro page. I took like some teal and purple, and then I added some stamps in, which is cool. This is definitely like a test for me in forgiveness of things not being perfect, because when I was making this journal, I was like very hyper fixated on having it be perfect. Especially because online you see everybody has like these beautiful reading journals, and you know, I'm trying. I'm not the most creative person, but I'm having fun, and you know, you make mistakes. We have little ink smudges. There were some here. I tried to cover it up with a ladybug, but I try. So next I've got my spice rating page, and part of me is like, oh, maybe I should have left it not colored, but oh well, we're having fun. I think though, for my list of like books I read, so like this is the books I read, and the plan is to do like stamps of stars and spice rating. I just haven't gotten that far. I also have the number of hours that it took me to read each book. This was for last year. And then I thought it would be fun to have like a little calendar of all of the amount of time I spent reading. So here's an example of that for each day, the number of minutes, because I record myself. I have like a reading clock app. So I think again though, I'm not gonna use the ink because all of this will just bleed really bad. I'm not sure what I'm gonna do yet. I bought some markers, but I'm worried that they're gonna bleed through the page, so we'll see what I do. But I did finish all of the stuff from last year, and so now I'm just gotta start this year's, but it takes a lot of time. So anyway, this is my reading journal. It's not perfect, and that's okay. And I'm interested to see what I do to add more stamps. There may not be room in some of these pages, so we'll see. Anyway, reading journal. So, as I've said, it's been a little slow this year with the reading. Oh, what a good kitten. I think thus far I've read 8 books. Let me look on Storygraph. That's the app I use. Oh, what a snuggly cat. Yes, so my goal is to read 35 this year. I'm at 8. And Storygraph loves to give you a little reminder and say, you are 4 books 4 books until you're back on track. So, I love being behind, but that's okay, you know? Sometimes we have lots of time for engaging in certain hobbies. Sometimes we don't. Things ebb and flow, and that's okay. I'm still reading, which is good. So, it's taking me on average 2 weeks to finish a book. And I've rated most of them as being a medium pace. And to my credit, I have read 3 books that were over 500 pages. 2 of them were like maybe over 600 or 700. They were actually quite long. But most of them have been in the 300 to 500 range, and they've all been fiction. And it wasn't until recently that I started actually reading books on my phone. I have reconnected with Libby, which has been wonderful. So, in a previous video, I talked about the first book I read this year, which was an Anne Rice book. The second book that I read this year is one that is written by an author that everybody talks about all the time, which is Sarah J. Maas's A Court of Silver Flames. Oh, what a good guy. He likes to snuggle with his mommy. Yeah. So, I would say that the A Court of Thorns and Roses series actually got me back into reading. I had seen people talking about it online, and I read the first book, and I think that was a moment when I realized, like, oh, I really enjoy romantasy. I really like fantasy. I'm not a nonfiction girl. You know, I can deal with real life every day that I'm living. I love seeing people's creativity with creating new worlds and just like go on an adventure that I could never experience in real life. And so I love reading fantasy and fiction. I also love romance novels. I think everything's a little bit more fun when there's a good romance. And so, reading A Court of Thorns and Roses really made me realize, wow, this is a genre that I really like. And it was the first time I had really read like a modern book that I really enjoyed. I think I had mostly been thrifting books, so I wasn't really reading anything new. And when I say thrifting, I mean like from Goodwill, not like I bought it used at a bookstore. So obviously those experiences are very different. I think that when you're thrifting books, they're like 10 or 15 or 20 years behind what's currently happening. So I'm sure in 10 years or even now, we'll be seeing these books all over the Goodwills, but not quite yet. This was the last book in the series. I kind of took a different approach to other people, and I chose to kind of pace myself with these books. You know, I wanted to like savor each story. I didn't want to just binge read through all of it. So I think I've been reading like one a year for the last couple years. This was the last one I needed to read, and I really enjoyed it. I think I gave it like 4.5 stars. I don't remember. It was really fun to get a different perspective, which would be Nesta's perspective. And I think that's something that Sarah J. Maas is really good at, is like exploring people's feelings. Admittedly, I don't know if she's always the best at I think she is good at world building. Like, her worlds are interesting, but I don't know if there's always like the best follow through with how the magic system works and all of this stuff, which is fine. But I think she's really good at like exploring people's feelings and having them go on these really emotional journeys where they have a lot of self-growth. So it was really fun to kind of watch Nesta, who obviously has been kind of an iconic but interesting character throughout these series. Like, she's always been kind of like cold, very strong. Yeah, they say she's always been prickly, profound, swift to anger, and slow to forgive. It's true. So it was really kind of fun to watch her go on her journey and develop in her romance. So yeah, I enjoyed this book. I think my biggest complaint was like at the very end, and I felt this way with A Court of Wings and Ruin, with both of them, where you kind of get to the end and there's like this horrible thing that happens or is about to happen, and I'm trying not to spoil anything here, and then kind of like in one chapter it's like, oh, everything's fine, and like lightly explained away. I understand that like Sarah J. Maas is writing these books and I think she wants them to have happy endings. I totally get that. I guess I just think it would have been more interesting if maybe the bad things did happen, or maybe she could have spent a little more time like explaining how they got out of those situations, because it just didn't. Sometimes it just feels like, oh, everything's fine, and we rush through it, and I don't know. It's just like my one complaint, I would say, is that we just kind of skip through the issues, and again, maybe if like the magic system is a little more developed or something, it would make more sense, but whatever, you know, it's still a fun read. I've really enjoyed it. I plan on keeping these books, and you know, we just got news recently that she's going to be publishing 2 or 3 more in this series, which is really awesome. So I can't wait. I don't know if I'll buy them new, just because I'm like weird and I want all my books to match, so I probably will wait until they're in paperback. We'll see. But I'm excited. I think there's a lot to explore. I mean, there's still a lot of like world conflict going on, and I think we still need to explore the characters of Elaine and what is his name? It's Tamlin's friend. What is his name? Lucian. That's it. Sorry. Had a moment. Lucian. I think there's a lot to explore with them still. I would love to hear their stories. And also there's like a new character added at the end of this book, so it'll be interesting to get to know them better and explore that as well. So, fun read. And looking forward to seeing what else Sarah has in store for us. Alright, the next book is The Atlas Paradox. This was something that I draw most of these books out of my book jar, and that's how I kind of choose the order that I read them in, so oftentimes it's random. And the Atlas 6 is the first book in this series, and it was like my top reads from last year, I would say. I loved the multiple perspectives. It's kind of like 6 characters that you follow in this series. They're from all over the world. This is like a low fantasy book in that there's like a magic system and people have powers, but they're living in the real world. And, you know, they get asked to come into this like secret society where there's this really amazing library, and they're all like kind of become members, and that's kind of the first book. and you're exploring everyone's powers and like their social dynamics, and it's really interesting. And at the end of the first book, there's like a big thing that happens to one of the characters that is like reverberating into this book. So in this book, I would say the entire time they're kind of like feeling that change of not having that sixth person. They've also all just been initiated, and they're like serving their first year as a member in the library, and they're kind of supposed to do like a research topic. And so I feel like the social group's kind of falling apart. Not that they were ever like all friends, but you know, this one character I guess had a lot of weight. So and then in that flip side, like she is trying to navigate coming back to the group basically. And so I didn't like this book as much as I liked the first one. I think this book is maybe kind of like a setup book for a lot of action that's going to happen in the third book, because I believe this is a trilogy. So I didn't like this one as much. I don't remember what I rated it. Let me look. Let's see. Let's see. I gave it 4.25, which is interesting because I also gave A Gourd of Silver Flames 4.25. I'm not always the best at ranking things. And sometimes I go back after I've read more books and like change the rankings or the ratings. But yeah, I feel like I definitely liked this book less than A Gourd of Silver Flames. I would maybe even bump it down to 4 stars, but I think that the final book in the series is going to be really good, and I'm still planning on keeping these books. And I love them too because I love when they have like character art. Like they have like art in the book of the characters, and I just think that's really cool. So anyway, that was my third book of the year. Okay, the next book is also a sequel, and it is called A Heart So Fierce and Broken. Hearts So Fierce and Broken. The first book in this series was A Curse So Dark and Lonely. And I guess similar to the first book in the ACOTAR series, this is kind of a rework on Beauty and the Beast, but it's like got a modern flair. So in the first book, we have a main character who, she actually has a disability, but I can't remember what it is, which is kind of interesting. I mean, it's nice to see characters with disabilities, you know, get representation of lots of different people and groups. I wish I could remember what it was. It's something that makes her kind of weak, like her muscles weak. So anyway, she's living in the modern times with her brother, and she gets like kidnapped and taken to this fantastical land, and basically this prince has been cursed by a witch, and I think he has to find like someone to fall in love with him, and the witch has also granted him a power though to like go into a different world and like take a girl to try to get to fall in love with him. I believe that's what happens in the first book. So at the end of the first book, there's a little bit of drama because the prince, who's like cursed to be a beast and he's like killed everyone in his kingdom, he and this knight, Knight Grey, and they're like kind of become best friends because they both have been living for a really long time. Basically, like, the world is in this like continuous cycle where, like, at the end of the season, if nothing happens, then they start over, just the two of them. And so at the end of the second book, you kind of find out that the knight, he's a knight. This knight, or like Lord Grey, whatever they call him, he is maybe like, has some witch blood in him, I think, and then he might also be like a secret heir to the throne. So then there's conflict between him and the prince, and the second book is about him and kind of like his journey to kind of deal with the fallout of his relationship with the prince. He's trying to not get killed, and then he meets this princess from another country, and they have a little bit of a romance. So it's a different perspective, and then you get like the dual POVs from him, the gray guy, and then this girl. So this was good. This is definitely like more of a YA novel. And honestly, I don't remember how it ended. I think they end up together and everything is resolved, sort of. It is kind of interesting because, like, in the first book you're really rooting for the prince, but then in the second book you're rooting for Grey, and it becomes kind of difficult because the prince is doing some not great things to try to like retain his, you know, position as the prince and like the soon-to-be king in his country. And then the character from the first book is like really, you know, she loves him, so she's like standing by him. So it is kind of interesting, but they do have resolution in the end, so that's good. I think there might be another book in this series. I don't remember. So yeah, this was a fun read. Not something I'm planning on keeping, but I did enjoy it. Let's see what I gave it. I also gave this 4.25. So I love to be right in the middle. Yep. I almost never, I don't think I've given anything lower than a 3-star before. Granted, I probably wouldn't read something if it was that low. Like, I wouldn't even pick it up to begin with, so. Okay, next book. This one is also kind of YA. This one is interesting. I like this premise. Also, I got it for $3 at Ollie's. $3. Ollie's is like, oh gosh, it's like a discount store. You know, it's like if a company makes like 100 of a product, and then like Target's like, I only want 70, and then they have 30 of the product left and they don't know what to do with it. They'll like sell it to these stores, or maybe like Target at the end of the season has like a lot of leftover product. They'll sell it to these stores. So like Target was selling this probably for $20, and then, you know, I got it for $3. So cool place. Anyway, this one is called Champion of Fate. Champion of Fate. This was interesting. This is like, if you like horses and you like powerful women fighting, being, you know, strong women, this is a story for you, I would say. I think it is a little more YA, but it was kind of an interesting premise. So like, in this world there are like these magical female warriors, and they're in like a group of female warriors, and they take apprentices basically, and you have to train to become one of these women, and you have to, you know, go through a ritual. So the story kind of initially follows one main character. Oh, her name is Reed. I believe it's Reed. Yes, Reed. she kind of becomes orphaned and then adopted by one of these women, and so she begins to train. And like when she becomes orphaned, she finds a horse. And the other premise too is that they have horses. So when they make the transition into being like full-fledged warriors, they get a horse, and they're both immortal. I mean, they can die, but they don't age. And so the whole premise behind getting initiated after you've spent all this time training is that you have to have a champion, which is like a person in the real world, and you're their champion, and you're basically helping them fight to get glory. And so it's kind of interesting because the magic like assigns a person to you. And so she gets assigned to this guy whose name I don't remember, and one of her friends gets assigned to another guy, and they're both fighting this war, the two guys with their champions, against another country. And again, it's all for them to receive glory, but there's a lot of like conflict that goes into that, I would say, about like what's right and what's wrong. And then Reed falls in love with her champion, which is difficult because you're not supposed to do that. And kind of interesting because at one point in the story, I think she becomes really against wanting to join the order. So then she has to have some conflict about whether she chooses to or not. And in the second book, which, because there's two in this series, I think we're going to see the consequences of those choices, of her choosing to be in the order or not. And then also like her continuing to kind of explore her relationship with her champion after some drama happened between them. So yeah, it was an interesting read. I enjoyed it. I don't think I'm going to plan on keeping this book, but I do want to read the second one because I thought it was interesting, and like I think it's an interesting premise of like they're doing all these things just to receive glory. Is that really ethical? I suppose like in these times it is, and in a lot of these stories it is. In real life, you do stupid things that hurt people for glory. So it's kind of an interesting premise. I enjoyed it. I think I gave it 4 stars. Yeah. Which, I don't know. I feel like I liked it better than A Heart So Fierce and Broken, but I'll just give everything 4.25. That's my perfect rating, I guess. Okay, the next book I read is by one of my favorite authors. Maybe she's my favorite author, I don't know. The one and only Miss Anne Rice. We love her. And this book is Blackwood Farm. Blackwood Farm by Miss Anne Rice. I love her. She writes so well. And maybe it's just because I'm so used to reading like YA. I find that sometimes the writing is good, but it's not like high level. I feel like Anne Rice writes really well. Like she has very high level writing. I think she's very good at world building. I think she's very good at like deeply exploring characters and their emotions. And it's funny because I feel like a lot of her books are just like backstories. Like the story is just a backstory, and then like we have a little bit of like current action, which is what happens in this book. So this book is in the Vampire Chronicle series. It's like the 8th book or something like that, and I really loved like the first 3, and you know, the first 3 Vampire Chronicle books. I don't remember like neutral about some of the other ones, but you know what, this one was really good. And it introduced new characters, and like I just love the way that Anne describes like New Orleans, and like well previously her books were written in real time, which was in the 80s, and I just think that she does such a good job of like making it just feel so real and iconic, but not in a way of like when you think of like 80s pop music. You know, that's obviously very stylized, but like maybe what it was really like to live in the 80s and like that vibe. I don't know. This book though, she wrote this book in the 2000s, right? Yeah, 2002. So it's a later book that she wrote, and it was really good. So it kind of opens up with a new character. His name is Tarquin Blackwood, and he's looking for Lestat. So Lestat is like a very famous vampire. He is in almost all of the books in some capacity, and Lestat is just like also incredibly iconic character. I love him. I think if anybody has watched the Vampire Chronicles series that they made, like with Sundance, which I believe is now on Netflix, I think they did a really good job casting Lestat and like getting his personality and stuff. Now granted, I've only watched the first season, but I did really enjoy his character and that actor. But anyway, so basically like we meet Tarquin, and he's searching out Lestat because he's a newly created vampire. He's very young, he's like 20, 21. And they come together, and then we get the whole backstory of Tarquin and like why he's looking for Lestat, how he's come to this point. And he starts at the very beginning, like since he was a child. And the interesting thing about Tarquin is that he can kind of see spirits, and he has some kind of spirit attached to him who they call Goblin. And ever since Tarquin became a vampire, after he would like feed on people, Goblin would come and like attack him and like enter his body and like suck all the blood out of him, and like basically he's becoming stronger and stronger, and he's also hurting people. And so the book kind of explores, you know, how Tarquin grew up and what happened with Goblin, and like how as they were aging, because like Goblin has always been there with him, and like how Tarquin, as he aged, Goblin grew stronger. And there's just a lot of like really awesome characters in this book. You know, we finally have a little diversity, which is nice because unfortunately Anne did have a history of mostly writing about white characters. So we actually have some, well, Merrick was a character of color in the book Merrick. But we have some more here, and they're kind of, it's like interesting because the family, I don't think the manor ever owned slaves. It is kind of like a plantation house. But basically they were like this other family who lives with them, kind of started off as the help, and now they're like really integrated into the family, and they all run Blackwood Manor together as like a big unit. So I thought that was really nice that she's actually getting with the times a little bit, not just talking about white people, which I think was a point of contention in the series, like in the television series, which is, you know, understandable. So they added people of color in the television series because it was just lacking. It was really lacking. So nice to see that in this book series, and I really enjoyed all the characters. Tarquin especially, he's a very passionate young man. Like, he definitely has grown up wealthy and eccentrically in this family. Like, he never had a formal education. But I like Tarquin because even though I think he is kind of impulsive, he knows what he wants, you know? Like, he makes decisions quickly, but he doesn't regret them or wish he had done something different, because he he knows what he wants. Like, he's able to make up his mind on things because he knows what he wants. And, you know, sometimes that really shines through. Like, later in the book, he meets a Mayfair, which is the other cool thing about this book, is that there's a crossover between the Mayfair series, the Mayfair Witch series. So you need to read those first, the first 3 of those books, before you get to this. And it was such a funny scene to me because he's at a dinner and like people can't see Goblin, and he realizes that this girl can see Goblin, and they're like, oh, that's a Mayfair, and he like walks over immediately and was like, I'm Tarquin, who are you? You are amazing, I'm in love with you, we are gonna get married, like just immediately, which really made me laugh. He's kind of intense, but his feelings for her followed through until the end of the book. And like I said, I think he's just a young man who knows what he wants. He knows what he likes. He knows what he wants. So, I don't know. I admire that. He has a good sense of self. And he's definitely very like passionate and impulsive. So anyway, this was a really interesting series. We also get some new vampire characters added in. And like 85% of the book is all backstory on like how they got up to this point, and like exploring all the relationships of his family members, and then the other family that lives in the house, all of them together. And then there's like a little bit of real-time stuff at the very end. And yeah, I'm actually very excited to read the next book, because in the next book it's a continuation of what happens to Tarquin and the Blackwood family, and I think there's going to be some Mayfair witches in here too. So anyway, I just love Anne. I think she just writes so well and is so good at making like really iconic, lovable characters. I think she's really good at just like bringing to life like this family and this house, Blackwood Manor. You know, the house itself is a character. It has so much history in it. And I don't know. I would say, I know that people often associate her with like romance and like smut. And the first book I read this year, which was the sequel to The Claiming of Sleeping Beauty, like that is definitely it. But the Vampire Chronicles are so great. And I just love Anne. So definitely check this out. Okay, this is my last physical book that I read this year, called The Half-Drowned King. Half-Drowned King. This is a trilogy again. And actually, I really enjoyed reading this book. This is set in, let's see, 9th century Norway. We have a map. Here's a map. And I'm not super familiar with Viking culture. I've not watched like the Viking shows on Netflix. So I thought this was really interesting and kind of exploring what it was like to be a person living in Norway during this time. And my understanding is that the coast of Norway has a lot of fjords, which are kind of like water valleys. So there's like the ocean, and then there's like an inlet where there's like mountain on, or like really tall hill on each side, and you go in and then it ends. Maybe historically there were glaciers in these fjords. I can't quite remember, but there's lots and lots of them. And so there's like these different groups, like they call themselves kings that run each like the land and protect the land around each fjord. And so it's kind of interesting because they're at this like point in the history of Norway where they go from having like everybody's a king to trying to transition into having one king. And so that's kind of like a lot of the premise of this book. Well, it's about two people, their brother and sister, Ragnvald and his sister Svanhild, however you say her name. And so we've got dual POVs because we're exploring her experience and his experience, and they have some conflict because like his father died and his stepfather is supposed to be running the land for himself and like his family until he's of age to claim the land himself. But of course, once the stepfather's in, he doesn't want to leave, and so there's some conflict between them. But then he also kind of gets on the bandwagon of backing this particular guy that wants to unite Norway and be the king. So there's a lot of different conflict. It's kind of interesting because everybody's kind of got their own agenda. So his sister is navigating, on the other hand, like what it's like to be a woman living in this time. And, you know, she really has a lot of faith in her brother that he's gonna claim their family land back and that she won't have to live with these people anymore. Her stepfather kind of sucks, and she won't have to be forced into marriage. She kind of ends up running away at one point, kind of forging her own path. And unfortunately, that path ends up having some conflict with Ragnvald and his path. So, yeah, it was a really interesting book, and actually I really enjoyed it. And again, it was just really interesting to like learn about a different, you know, a point in history in a country that I'm not really very familiar with. So, yeah, and this book was written in 2017, and there's 2 more, so it'll be interesting to see. Like, I would say that at the end of this book, the guy that was trying to be king was making progress. But there's a lot of, like, social, political relationship stuff going on there. So it'll be interesting to see how all of that progresses and, like, how the sister and the brother, their choices, are they going to continue to be in conflict? What's going to happen? So, yeah, it was really good. Okay. And then I read On Libby, Lore. And lore is kind of like a mix of like modern times and like Greek mythology. And there's like these different houses that used to support each god. And I was honestly a little confused sometimes. For some reason, they have like every 10 years, like the gods inhabit the bodies of mortals, and then different groups try to kill them to get their powers, because if you kill a god, their powers enter you, and then like you become a god and immortal. So this main character, her name is Lore, they have had their entire family be wiped out except for them, and she was kind of trying to like get out of this whole situation because her entire family got murdered because of it. So then basically in this book, there's a guy who kills a god, becomes very powerful, and wants to kill all of the other gods and all of the other people that have the god's powers so he can become like the top god. And the main character, Lore, is working with her friend who has become a god, like her childhood friend, and to try to stop him. And also they kind of want to get out of the situation and stuff. So it's a standalone series. It was good. It wasn't like my favorite. It's definitely YA. I think I gave it like a 3.5. So yeah, those are the books that I've read recently. I've been a little slow, but I'm keep chucking along, which was really good. So before we part ways for the day, I wanted to finish things off by drawing some new books to read from my book jar. So my book jar is something that I made because I sometimes have a hard time choosing what to read next. And I have a lot of books that I purchased that I haven't read. So the book jar kind of adds a random aspect to my reading. And in a previous video, I put together the book jar. So all of the pieces of paper are a title of a book that I own. And if I read a book and then I have the next one in the series, I add it to the jar. Okay, so let us pick a few from the jar. Okay, I'll just set this here. All right, so the first one is, can't read this probably, Vow of Thieves. Okay. Number 2 is The Sight, which is from the Warrior Cat series. Okay, and number 3, we'll only do 3 for today, is called Eternal Rider. Okay, so let me go find those books really fast. I'll be right back. Okay, I have the books. So let's talk about them really fast. So, Vow of Thieves. This is a sequel. The first one is Dance of Thieves. And it's a duology. Yes, so I think in the first book, it's like they're mercenaries and they're helping somebody in a kingdom. And there's a bit of a romance going on there. And so let's just read the back and see what it says. Kazi and Jace. So Kazi was the mercenary and Jace is he was like a prince, I think, or something. Have survived, stronger and more in love than ever. Their new life now lies before them. The Bollingers, which is Jace's family, will be outlaws no longer. Tor's Watch will be a kingdom. And Kazi and Jace will meet all challenges side by side together and last. See, they might have gotten married at the end of the first book, I can't remember. But an ominous warning mars their journey back, and they soon find themselves tangled in a web of deceit, woven by their greatest enemies and the unlikeliest allies, a place where betrayals run deeper and more deadly than either had thought possible, and where timeless ambition threatens to destroy them both. Yeah, written in 2019. I remember enjoying reading the first one. I wish I did remember a little bit more. It is kind of unfortunate with the jar is that if you don't read them back to back, you kind of forget some things. So I probably should have there be less space in between books, but okay. The next one I drew was The Sight, which is from the Warrior series, which, for those of us that are, I don't know, millennials, I guess, this is maybe something that you read when you were growing up. This series is like Game of Thrones, but for cats and for children. And it's really good. I, don't knock it till you try it. This is like they always do 6 books in the series, and I think this is the 3rd one, which is The Power of 3, which is like the main character has some kids, and these are the kids. So, really good series. I kind of started rereading them a couple years ago, and I'm kind of working my way through. And I'm so thankful that I still have them. These are my original books from when I was a kid. I feel like sometimes when you're transitioning, like from being a teen to a young adult, you get rid of some stuff. And I got rid of so many books that I now wish I had kept. But it is what it is. So luckily I kept these. I knew their worth. So excited to read this one. And then finally, this is a book called Eternal Rider. And honestly, I think this is like smut, which I am totally down for. Although, yeah, it was written in 2011, and then I think they republished it in 2022, and they like revamped the cover. Because like if we look at the cover, like if I look this up on Libby really fast, Eternal Rider. Here we go. Yeah, so if we look up the cover on Libby, here it is. Yeah, shirtless man. I feel like this was very popular back in the early 2000s for smut books. But I feel like this is like not, I don't know. You're like, wow, this is smut. But look at this beautiful cover. You know, they've reworked these books and they look awesome. Like, I saw this cover and I was like, I don't know what this is about, but it's pretty. It's drawing me in. I want to read it. So, a 4-horseman novel. Let's read the back. She's his only hope to stop the apocalypse. His name is Ares, and the fate of mankind rests on his powerful shoulders. If he falls to the forces of evil, the world falls too. As one of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, he is far stronger than any mortal, but even he cannot fight his destiny forever. Not when his own brother plots against him. Yet, there is one last hope. Gifted in a way other humans can't or won't understand, Kara Thornheart is the key to both his safety and his doom. But involving Kara will prove treacherous, even beyond the maddening, dangerous desire that seizes them the moment they meet. For starving off eternal darkness requires a staggering cost. Kara's life. Ooh. I feel like, yeah, this literally says fantasy romance on the back. This is like OG, you know? This is OG before ACTAR, this type of stuff. There are other like kind of romancy fantasy books out there. So I'm jazzed. I'll probably really enjoy this. So anyway, thanks for coming and hanging out with me and my kitty. He's wandered off. But I will try to not let the time go on so long since we have a book chat. And yeah, I hope you guys are having a good reading year. I'd love to hear about anything that you guys are reading right now. And if you agree with my thoughts on the books, if you've read any of them, did you like them? I'd love to hear. And I have my kitty. I found him. So we will see you in the next one. Can you say bye?